Welcome back to another episode of Digital Voices. My name is Bo Tiffany. We talk about what's on our hearts, what's on our minds. We share our stories and figure out the things that shape us. I have an interesting and dear friend that I have on the podcast today, Miss Jazzmine McCall. Jazzmine and I have known each other since I moved up to the Sheboygan area, and she has become a very dear friend to me. In addition, her whole family and I have gotten close. And I have nothing but the utmost respect and love for this lady. She has gone through a hell of a ride the last 6-7 years since I've known her. And she was gracious enough to agree to come on the podcast and tell her story. So I would like to encourage all of my listeners to put positive support her way and thank her as she comes on and tells us her story. Jazzmine, you're an angel, and I love you. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
I love you too, Bo. So what do you want to tell them? Initially.
So let's break it down a little bit. Let's figure out who Jazzmine is. You're from Sheboygan. You have one brother, right?
Yes.
Okay. Grew up with hometown values, really family-centered. Tell us a little bit about that.
Family center. I have my mom and my dad. I have my brother. I have my son. We have all three of our family dogs. After my second son, Squeaker's died, we all kind of got like support dogs, not including my cousin that passed away. I had 11 funerals in 8 months, one starting with my son, the first one, the last one ending with my cousin. And she was the only sister I ever had to me. And then I have, on my dad's side, I have my aunt and my uncle. He's the children of 3, but the youngest brother and his wife and his children are the ones that we see the most. And then my mom only has her sister. There's not much left of my family whatsoever. And so my mom's sister.
A lot of loss in a very short period of time.
Oh yeah.
So
sure.
Let's roll back just a little bit. I want to kind of just get a little bit of a sense of who you are. So family was always really close. One thing that runs through your family too seems to be a sense.
We weren't close whatsoever.
Oh, you weren't back then? Is that because everybody was working, or just everybody was? What changed?
We got close after all the deaths.
Gotcha. So the family tragedy has brought you together as a family.
Because we're so little, there's not much of us.
Sure. And
on both sides.
Yeah. So where did you get your sense of work ethic? Because all of you seem to work your butts off. Your mom, your dad, and you.
It's a really, really good question. And it's actually something I might have to think about. Because the only thing that I thought about forever is working my ass off. I've worked 17 hours in a row while pregnant. I've worked 40 days in a row not pregnant. I have worked and worked and worked my ass off, and I worked.
It's one thing I've always really appreciated about you.
When I was on maternity leave, they gave me 3 months, and I took 1. And I came back, and it was 14 days straight because I didn't work. And the 14th day is when my son died.
So
and my mom always taught me that memories are more important than money.
Right.
she never lied.
So tell us a little bit about that, and I want you to only share as much as you want to, but the story of the tragedy of your son and the events that surrounded that, along with what happened afterwards, to me was shocking and hard to see happen to you as a friend and as someone that loves you. And I only want you to share as much as you're willing to, but the point is that this is a platform to raise awareness so that things like this don't continue to happen. And
right.
Yeah.
But what part are you looking for? Are you looking for the whole story? Because I can give you the whole story.
Yeah, then let's go.
But I'm getting a cigarette first.
All right. Well, you go ahead and do that.
For sure.
So the whole story. Yeah. You were working your butt off. You met someone that you ended up marrying, and you were pregnant. Set it up how you want.
Well, the start of it was, Damien was starting kindergarten. Damien's dad was never, ever stable. He wasn't. I went through a lot of bartending jobs where I figured out where people were just awful.
Sure.
To one another. They were just awful to one another. And then, I had my little thrill of self-pity, I guess you would call.
Mm-hmm.
Self-pity. And when Damien's dad left, I found my husband at the time. I found him. And he was the one that would open up doors for you, and he would do anything to take you on a date. He would try everything.
Right.
But there are things that I didn't know about him, like everybody else with everything. I didn't know that he was in the drugs or anything else like that. And when he got arrested, still didn't know he was in the drugs at that point in time.
What type of drugs was he into?
When he got arrested, it was only weed that I knew about.
Okay.
But he was actually an ex-heroin addict. And to this day, he's not a heroin addict. So ever since I was with him, he did quit cold turkey. But at that point in time when he got arrested, I'm not sure that I believe exactly that story. I went over to his house. That's when I worked second shift. And I got off at midnight and went over to his house. And his friend was there. And his other friend was there. And they were doing hard drugs. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he was gone, and he left me with these sketchy-ass people, and he never came back home. It was my payday. I had a bottle of Jaeger. Thought he was going to come back home, and he never came back home. And his mom woke me up at 8 a.m. and asked me where he was, and I had no idea. I kicked those other people out of the house, and I went to his brother's house immediately, and that's where his dad lived at the time because both of his parents were splitting up. And we tried calling all the hospitals and everything else, and I said, he's in jail. Sure enough, he was in jail. It was supposed to be a weed deal that the person is still paralyzed, by the way. I'm not sure what kind of life he's living because he was selling heroin afterwards. But I was told it was a weed deal. Still don't believe that. And he was the middleman, and he bought 2 people over by him to, make the transaction. And in the middle of that transaction, they were playing Xbox video games. And by the way, they don't play video games. So that was interesting enough.
Right.
Yeah. And then they had semi-automatic weapons. And the girl who was sleeping in bed, which was the girlfriend, she actually got shot in her ass.
Wow.
The dude got shot in his leg. He is paralyzed. But even though he got shot in his leg, he crawled to the toilet. He crawled to the toilet to throw all that away because Will called 911 because the bullet hole hit above his head this far.
So just like an inch or two. I have her on video, but we don't have that obviously for the podcast. Just for my listeners.
Right. And it was all for the purpose of trying to make money and take me on a date and stuff. He sat 6 months in jail. I know the names of the people, but I'm not going to give those out.
Yeah, don't do that, please.
After that, the dude, I met the dude 12 hours because I smoke. And I will admit I smoke. And
marijuana.
This was 12 hours before this happened.
Sure.
I met this dude. He showed me a big wad of cash. He showed me all of the weed he had. And I looked at my boyfriend at the time, Will, and I'm like, this dude is looking to get robbed. I'm a complete stranger. Why would he show me that?
Right.
Literally 12 hours after that, he got robbed. How was that a coincidence?
Right.
How was that not shady?
Right.
Because I called it out for one, and I said it out, and he has a part to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets out of jail after 6 months. And I didn't talk to him for 2. And I continued to marry this guy for some stupid reason.
How old are you at the time?
How old was I? I was 23 when I met Lou.
Yeah, so you were young.
Yeah, I was young and stupid. That's for sure. Jarvis.
Some of our listeners might be familiar with that state of mind.
Jarvis. No. Sorry. He's barking at the birds.
No problem.
So yeah, then I married the dumbass and decided to have a child with him. And 4 months when I was pregnant, I worked 17 hours a day. 5 months, I married him. I didn't accidentally do it because he cheated on me probably 7 months beforehand. 2 months before I found out that I was pregnant. And got married to him. Got our ranch home 2 months after. A month after that, it was Christmas. And we had a plan. We had a plan that I was going to get a puppy. He was going to give me a puppy, and he wanted a gun for hunting. He got a gun. But because I was so far pregnant, he's like, you have too much to worry about. You don't need a dog. So he never got me a dog. But wait for it. Wait for the ending of it. So during Christmas time, I'm always working. During the holidays, I'm always working. And I told him I wanted to go home, and he didn't accept that fact. So he took the shotgun that was his, threw it at my face, and then tried to hold me down on the couch and said I wasn't allowed to leave until I had his child, and I could have his child there, and then I could leave.
Wow.
At that point, I tried to grab my oldest son, and Damien was probably 17. He was 9 at the time. And his dog, because I got Damien his own dog. Tried to grab them at the time, and he tried to lock me out of the house with them in it. At that point in time, I broke him. Opened the door, he went pregnant. Got back into the house. My mom was already on her way. And I went to my mom's house, and I went to work the next day. Like nothing ever happened. I had squeakers February 11th.
And that was your
I'm not sure, like, let's backtrack just to, like, October when I got married.
Mm-hmm.
I was 5 months pregnant. He tried to fist fight me. You know the mess that happened that day.
Yeah.
He tried to fist fight me at home. So there's that. Squeakers. I had squeakers. And I had a lot of money. And I bought a safe. He would pull thousands of dollars out. He had a $40 Budweiser habit a day. That's not including smoking. And he stole money out of the safe when I didn't sleep for 3 weeks straight. 3 weeks. And I wish I was kidding when I said that. And his brother ran out of the gas for the 5th time that week. The 5th fucking time. Like, I know you're stupid, but you're not that fucking stupid. And, we're gonna walk to Quick Trip. At that time, I lived on north side of Sheboygan on Pershing Avenue. And I know how long it takes to walk, and I know what stores are open and what are not. And an hour and a half later, they both come back shit-faced. And I looked at both of them, and like, where were you? And they're like, well, we went to go get gas. What do you think we were doing? A couple days later, the girlfriend of the brother-in-law. So when the guys were at the bar the other day, I'm like, what?
Truth always comes out, right?
He straight up was stealing my money to go to the bar. And I'm not a bar person. I was a bartender, yes, but I'm not a bar person.
Right.
And I'm like, they did what? Because I straight up looked at my brother-in-law and I'm like, you better not be lying to me. Because he was a brother to me.
Right.
Not including the fact that he raped me 2 years ago. So there's that. Yep. A whole fun family. I will call them out on everything they've ever done. And at the time, like, me and him were always super close because I thought of him like my brother. And I was folding baby clothes at the time. I'm like, where were you? And he's like, we went to go get Jazz. Like we said. And I'm like, Davey, you better not fucking be lying to me. He's like, I'm not. 4 days later, his girlfriend called them both out. And I snapped. And then after that, like, I went back to work early after maternity leave.
Mm-hmm.
And Squeakers died the minute I had vacation. But his sister had him for 4 hours prior. She wouldn't answer her phone. She wouldn't tell us where she was. She didn't say anything that happened. And she didn't explain why she was late. And she just disappeared. And that night... One second. Jarvis! No. No jar. So that night, we had Domino's. I ordered pizza. I had my wine. I remembered my boss at the time. She was wine painting with her sister because her husband died. So I remember the whole night and what happened.
Sure.
And Will had a couple of beers. We had our family dinner and we went to sleep. I woke up at 3 a.m. Went to go get a glass of water. Came back from a glass of water, and I still check on Damien. I check on the dogs. I check on everybody. Mm-hmm. And I looked at Squeakers at the time, and he didn't look like he was breathing. And I'm like,
sweetheart?
And I picked him up, and he wasn't moving.
Let me stop you real quick. So I want to back up. So your husband's sister had been looking after him, correct? And there was some stuff that happened when he was brought home. And this is all kind of tied into this. Could you tell us about that? And then we can go into what happened with Squeakers.
So his sister lived out of town, like 45 minutes out of town. She would watch him when we were at work.
Right.
He worked construction. I managed my station. Jarvis? No jar. I managed my station. I got home normally around 3, and he got normally around home 4 to 5. He was a roofer, construction worker. It all depended when the job got done,
right,
what time we would get home. But the baby was always due home when I got home because I always had a set schedule. Always.
Sure.
And texted her, we called her, everything. There was no answer. He got home around 6 that night. That's right. He got home around 6 that night. And so that's 2 to 3 hours after I got home. And he's calling his sister, asking his sister, like, what's going on? Where's my son? Where's my son?
Right.
There's never any answer.
And this has never happened before, right?
Never. Nope. And she finally delivered him around, I said 6, but 7, 8 o'clock now that I realized. Because Will got home a lot after me, and then he got mad. Mm-hmm. And she dropped him off. She never had any explanation why she didn't answer. He was sleeping, and she just left abruptly. And that night, we ordered pizza. I had my wine, he had his beers, and we went to sleep. And at 3 o'clock in the morning when I got up and I got my water, checked on my oldest son, checked on his dog. I even checked on Will. And then I checked on Squeakers, and it didn't look like he was breathing. So I picked him up, and he didn't move.
Can I ask a question?
And I freaked out. And
when this girl brought Squeakers home, the sister of your husband, when he was sleeping, did you ever see him up after that? Did you see that he was breathing at that time? Was he still okay at that time? Okay.
Yeah. He was up. He was breathing. He was only up for a little while.
Okay.
And
did you see any indications that things were abnormal with him at that point?
All right. Jarvis, you can't see him.
Yep. The birds.
No, there was nothing abnormal at that point. There was nothing wrong with him. When she picked him up before I went to work, he was fine.
Okay.
He had a little constipation problem, but that doesn't explain why part of his brain shut down in the middle of his sleep that night.
But there was, when she brought him home and you saw him, he was up and alert for a little while. And then shortly after, he ended up going to sleep.
Not that much.
Okay.
Not that much, because she dropped him off around like 6 or 7, and he was only up for like probably a half an hour. He went to sleep around 8.
Okay.
He went to sleep around 8, but he was still breathing. He was still being a normal baby.
Sure.
But for that much being a newborn, he was sleeping quite calmly.
Sure. Okay. And so he goes to sleep, and you were checking on everybody, and you notice that he's not breathing, and then you realize that you have a problem. What happened? You immediately call the cops. You woke up Will. Go through those events.
I screamed, and Will actually would not wake up to his screaming. He wouldn't get up. He wouldn't help me at all. I was the only one who did anything.
Or was he underneath the influence of something?
He didn't drink that much that night.
I just know we were talking about.
He drank a lot more afterward.
The hard drugs. I wasn't sure. So
not that I know of personally.
And Squeakers was sleeping in the bed next to him, or was he in a crib?
He was in his crib.
Okay. And
he was in his crib.
So Will's not responding. You're freaking out. Someone calls 911. Who was that?
No, he actually did respond that time.
Oh, he did.
Which is the first time. That's because I was screaming.
Right.
I screamed at the top of my lungs because this is my child. And he actually woke up for the first time to that. And he started performing CPR, and I called 911, and there's the 911 phone call with me on it.
Right.
And on that phone call, he's trying to perform CPR.
How did they do that on it?
We have to stay on the line.
Sure. What's he doing? Because I don't even know what to do when it comes to reviving a newborn. So, just mouth to mouth, chest compressions, or what's he trying to do? Both those things? Okay.
The only thing that anybody knows how to do, really.
Sure.
Jarvis! I can't whistle.
So,
but what anybody else knows how to do, what I'm saying?
Absolutely. How long before the paramedics got there?
16 minutes. 16 minutes and 36 seconds.
So it must have been a whirlwind for you.
That's a long time. That's a long time. And I literally lived 2 blocks away from Memorial Hospital where he went.
Why didn't...
Yeah.
I would have just jumped in and run him to the hospital. How come you guys didn't?
We didn't have the car at the time. We didn't have a car.
Gotcha.
We had no honestly, me running with him would have been faster.
Right.
Would have been faster.
Gosh.
But there was not a team. I talked to all the doctors. The doctors wanted to do a lawsuit against the county. and they would have lost their medical license, and they would have done it for my lawsuit, but I was too in shock at the time to do anything about it. And you know what? No amount of money is going to bring my child back.
Right.
So I can sue them for my trauma. I can sue them for that, but what is money going to do? It's not going to bring him back.
Right.
And, but anyways, the doctors wanted me to sue, but they told me not a team of doctors could have saved him because part of his brain shut down when he was sleeping. He was sleeping. So this is almost a newborn that's sleeping all the way through after he's been delivered 4 hours late with no explanation.
Is that unusual? I don't know. I don't have any kids, so I don't have that reference.
Well, I guess it depends on the newborn.
Okay.
Really. But, you get the colicky ones, but no newborn sleeps all the time.
Right.
And he slept a lot that night. A lot. And she was the caretaker when we were both at work.
You're talking now about Will's sister.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So with those events, what ended up happening? Because that story is super tragic, but what happened after that is what it blew my mind. I thought I had been through a lot of stuff, but what you ended up having to go through.
Which part are you talking about?
Just with the police and the investigation and all of the things that happened.
Oh, well, the investigation. Well, after he passed away, we didn't get 10 degrees. Okay, can you pause this podcast for 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, where were we? So we were talking about...
The ending.
Yeah, so we were talking about what happened after Squeakers passed away, the investigation, and we were going to start getting into that. So you didn't.
So we were in the hospital.
You didn't get time to grieve, I think, is the last thing that you said. But you were in the hospital. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Not even. It took me at least 2 years to end up actually grieving after my child.
Because of what you're about to tell us. Just for our listeners.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, the police department, when he passed away, we were in the hospital. I wasn't allowed to pee. I was allowed to have a cigarette alone. And one of the young cops, which is one of the known ones around here, actually, Sheboygan PD, for the win. Anyways, one of them, we were actually in the chapel of Memorial Hospital, and that's when they told us that, they couldn't revive him.
Right.
There wasn't a team of doctors. His pediatrician was there. And his pediatrician was hugging me. And his pediatrician put me in a private room and was so mad at the fact of how the police department treated me, just for the fact that I couldn't even pee.
You haven't told
us
have a cigarette. What did they do? So they were treated. How did they treat you? I guess let's start there.
So I had to pee, and the cop kicked open. It was a young cop for the Sheboygan Police Department. He kicked open the bathroom door to Memorial Hospital bathroom and was like, "You don't belong being by yourself." my mom was outside of the bathroom, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
so she was there for my support. And he's like, you don't belong being alone. You can't be alone. And my mom being the aggressive person she is,
Mm-hmm.
she's like, why the fuck can't she piss? Sorry for the language.
No problem.
And the cop's just like, guilty people like her don't belong to be by themselves.
So what made them think that you're guilty of something involving your son Squeaker's death, who is a newborn at this point?
So I talked to multiple social workers and stuff like that. I talked to multiple cops after this. It's been many years now. And they were trying to make an example out of people. I guess there was, back in 2012 in Sheboygan County, there was a mother that killed her child. 4 years old. Her and her boyfriend or husband, I believe. The social worker, he's retired now. His name's Lincoln. But, and then she had another child and she did it again. It was a terrible situation. It's like one of those horror movies. I forgot which one horror movie that was, with the mother that drowned her 3 children.
I don't know.
It might be a documentary, actually, because it actually happened. So there are crazy people like that. Don't get me wrong, there are. But the DA itself was trying to make an example of the matter. I get it. Save
talking
the
about
children.
the Andrea Gates. She confessed to drowning.
Did you just look it up?
Yeah, but that's like a national thing, or is this local to Sheboygan?
No, it's a national thing.
So there was a Andrea Gates that had drowned 5 of her children in the bathtub in June of 2001. She'd been suffering from postpartum depression, severe postpartum depression.
I think she's in a mental institution at this point.
Okay.
She's not even locked up. I think she's in a mental institution.
She was released February 2nd of 2006. She was in the Harris County Jail. And then...
That's kind of not okay.
But I guess there's a retrial.
Well, and then you have the trials of what? What is her name? Jodi Arias?
Who?
Jodi Arias?
Jodi Arias?
Arias? Maybe.
Oh, okay. You know, this Google route.
She had her 2-year-old?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the murder of Travis Alexander.
But what the retired social worker was telling me, because I told him all the problems, like, after, I got released early because I fucking didn't do anything wrong. I just went through trauma. What he was telling me was, because he researched it too, I guess, in Sheboygan County, that a mother did that.
Yeah, she's serving a life sentence currently.
Which one?
Jodi Arias.
Hopefully. But yeah, there was something in Sheboygan County that this old social worker, which is very nice to me, because I explained my problem, and I'm like, what the hell's wrong with them?
And so they're equating your situation with these 2 high-profile women from way earlier, at least 10 years. I think Jodi Arias was 2008, and the other one that I mentioned was in 2003, was it? So this happened. What year was it that Squeakers passed?
Squeakers passed in 2017.
Yeah, so anyway, so they're trying to say that you're a mother that was trying to kill her newborn, and this is an accusation that was made by this young Sheboygan.
Honestly, I don't know what they were trying to say. So okay. I really don't. I don't know what they were trying to say because
he said he told you that you were guilty, right? Guilty women don't get to be alone in the bathroom. Isn't that what you said, or did I?
When he was in the hospital? Yeah. Like, we first found out that he passed away, we were in the chapel.
But
Me and Will were in the chapel, and I was in a state of shock. I'm like, this can't be happening. Right. There's no way. Like, there's got to be some way to get past this. There's got to be some way to...
So what happened in the chapel? Get past what? You mean past his death, or get past? Or I'm confused.
Okay, so there was a priest in there. Obviously, there was an officer in there. And
sure.
Me and Will, we're not religious people. We never have been.
Sure.
But you know, they were praying, and at that point in time, I don't care if you're religious or not, we prayed.
Right.
We prayed. Because that was their life.
Mm-hmm.
They came in, told us the news, and Will was literally wrapped around my legs. And I was just in shock. And right after that, we were brought into another room at the hospital. Didn't even know existed, for an investigation. We weren't allowed to talk to our family members.
So, looks like I just lost you. All right. So they bring you from the chapel into a private room, and they sit you down. You're not able to talk to your family. What happened?
I was not able to talk to my mom, my dad, my husband, my brother, my cousins, my aunt, anybody.
Sure.
I was not allowed to talk to anybody. You know, I was under investigation. And I was literally read the lines of, did your husband kill your son? Did you kill your son? In those exact words. Now, I know a lot of people lack intelligence, but I would like to believe that the police department would be a little bit smarter and...
Right.
But these are detectives now. These are detectives asking straight up, did you kill your son? No. What the fuck? Did your husband kill your son? No. What the fuck? Why? Why? Why would... And these are moments after I found out he passed away.
Right.
A moment. And they ask the most stupid ass questions. Just like that. Under investigation for 8 hours. So he passed away at 5:05 a.m. in the morning. I found him at 3. And he was pronounced at the hospital at 5:05. We got out of there around 12:30 in the afternoon.
Did they say why they were investigating you? Did they give you any information, or was this a hounding of information seeking from them?
Well, when they took him away to the hospital, and we were waiting for the cops to take us to the hospital. They wanted to search my house. So they didn't have a warrant at the time. They wanted a consent warrant. So, and we were completely positive that we signed it. Like, search my house. They were, because the opiate epidemic, they're worried about all these druggies and stuff.
Right.
Whatever. And me and him both signed it. We signed it completely okay. I told him, I'm like, the most you're going to find is probably a bowl. That's all I have left. And if you want to arrest me for that right now, I don't really give a shit.
Right.
Because we were at the end.
Bowl of weed there, listeners, by the way, just so you know. I was just telling our listeners that it was a bowl of marijuana. It wasn't, anything hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just weed. And they actually got another warrant out. They asked the DA for another warrant because the DA wasn't happy because he didn't find anything wrong in my house. So you got a consent warrant that literally you tore apart my house, my furniture and everything else. Right. That was not good enough because you didn't find anything. So the DA asked for something else, and they found a baggie. They found a baggie tied in a knot, okay, with this brownish powder in it. It was onion powder from my chili from 3 days beforehand. But, yeah. If you would have opened it up, you would have figured it out.
Well, they have test kits for that stuff, too.
Oh, apparently not at that time.
Okay.
It only took them 3 weeks to figure out that it was garlic powder, not,
right,
or onion powder, not heroin. Wow. For the love of God. And they wouldn't give the phones back. So the people we can contact, like his other grandmother, which is dying, at the time, we couldn't contact her to let her know that her grandson passed away. We couldn't inform anybody that, hey, Ivan passed away.
Right.
Because we were under investigation. Okay? So after that consent warrant and the DA's warrant to redo the household, oh my God. For onion powder, for my chili, for the love of God. Anyways, they made me and my husband go back to my house. And that morning, what happened when I woke up, I got my glass of water and, I searched rooms, like I said, and I still do that to this day. I always do that. I unplug everything because I'm afraid of house fires. I'm worried about my family. I always am because I'm afraid of what? Mm-hmm. I wonder why. But I did that beforehand already. And I woke him up. He performed CPR. I called 911, everything else. After we found out he passed away, and under the 8-hour investigation, we were still separated. And we had to go back to the house and perform with a baby doll on camera what happened that morning. So if it wasn't traumatic enough, they made us re-perform what happened to us.
Right.
On camera. And then they called in CPS, because Damien was 9 years old at the time. They called in CPS to take away Damien because he was in the household when Squeakers passed away.
So not only did you lose your child, but then they took your other child from you. So it's...
They tried to.
But essentially on that day, you lost both of your children, you know? For
what reason?
Right. So...
For what reason? Like, literally, we were living the perfect life. We had a ranch home, husband and wife. We had a brand new child. We had Damien. Damien has dogs. Damien was taken care of. We had this set up for a brand new child, everything. We had everything.
Right.
And then that happened, and then they did that. So when CPS came in, which they were actually pretty decent to us because there's really no reason for them to be there. We got decent people.
Thank God.
Which I'm thankful for. Yeah, because I heard that there's some pretty mean ones. But we got decent people. And our intake worker, he was cool. And then my initial worker, she loved the living crap out of us. Actually, I got off of CPS 4 months early because I was under CPS for a year because I'm a grieving mother, and they were worried about Damien because I was a grieving mother.
Right.
So she showed up every now and again, and she was great. Like, I had nothing to hide. I didn't. And I got off 4 months early because she looked at me and she's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I'm like, I don't know what you're doing here either, but you're a nice company. So,
right.
Yeah, she actually, my social worker cried because the moment she left my house and let me go, she was dealing with somebody with cockroaches and needles.
Right.
So that's exactly it. Like, what am I doing here?
Right.
Anyways, but when I got CPS because of my grieving matter, we were court ordered, me and my husband were court ordered to go to counseling to make sure we were stable enough for my child to be there, my oldest one. Which makes sense. I get it, but he refused to get any sorts of help. And I'm like, you need to do this, and you need to do this for him, blah, blah, blah. And when we went to court for it, the district attorney looked at him and said that he was nothing. He was nothing to my child, and he was his stepdad for, 5 years. That he was nothing. He meant nothing to his life and everything. And then they contacted his dad in Florida that has not been around since he's been alive. Wow. And they wanted to bring him to him. And the funny part is, he moved to Florida because he can't be extradited for child support and everything else like that.
Wow.
Sneaky little shit, yeah. Sneaky little shit people do. Okay? And after the district attorney told my husband that he meant nothing to my son, he literally acted like he meant nothing to my son. And he wouldn't go through the counseling. He wouldn't deal with the courts. He wouldn't deal with the CPS. He wouldn't deal with anything. And because Damien is literally mine, I have to abide. Like, I just lost my son, and I'm not going to lose my other one.
Right.
So I have to abide by the court system.
Right.
Whether they're bullshit or not, I have to abide by them because I can't lose him. I can't lose another one. I'm not going to survive that. There's no way I could.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually, my husband got so bad to the point where he was just doing nothing but drinking. Nothing but drinking. You're lucky if he was working. He wasn't doing anything. And I got beat so many times. I actually, when Ivan passed away, we got, I got a urn. So my family paid $10,000 for the birth of Ivan. That's including the crib, the clothes, the diapers, everything.
Right.
And my husband's family paid for the funeral. And that is why my husband has the ashes and I don't. But we both have chains that I bought.
Mm-hmm.
It's an urn. It's got his ashes in it. It's got his name on it.
For the listeners, she has a beautiful heart necklace that is an urn. It has his footprints on the front and ashes inside, and it's very beautiful. What does that say? And his name on one side too. It's very sad. I knew you before the tragedy, and so I watched my friend. I was there for your wedding. I helped with all that, and to watch you at what should have been the happiest moments of your life turn into what they did broke my heart. So I just wanted to say that. And also I wanted to ask, how did this all end? Did you get an attorney for yourself? Who did you get to fight for you?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. So all of this stuff's happening. Did you guys get an attorney? Anybody that was representing you?
This time I didn't.
So
nothing is gonna fix this. Not amount of money. How badly we were treated,
right.
And like the court system did fuck up. They really, really did, and they tried to charge us. They tried to take Damien away. They tried to.
So
at the end of it,
did they ever find out why? What did they find with squeakers? So I know that I've heard
so his autopsy.
Yeah.
He passed away April 15th of 2017. And autopsies, you were told that they take 8 weeks.
Right.
At most. I did not get his autopsy report until August 10th.
Okay. And
he passed away April 15th.
Right. So 6 months. 3 times the normal amount.
Not 6 months, but
close.
It's a pretty long time.
Yeah.
It's a lot longer than 8 weeks, that's for sure.
Sure.
Okay, and the autopsy report says S.I.D.S, but the medical report says a part of his brain shut down when he was sleeping. And so he was my first funeral in 8 months. Out of 11, my last one was my cousin, and part of her brain had a big tumor, the corner side of her brain right here in the frontal lobe.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this right here is your personality part of your brain.
So the frontal lobe, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like if that affects stuff, or if you have that, you're not normal, like you act abnormal and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not saying that they're compared or they're connected, but part of his brain, I believe right here, in the left part, in the back part,
mm-hmm.
shut down, and he was no longer able to wake up. They ruled it out as S.I.D.S, but what the pediatrician told me was There's not a team of doctors that could have helped him.
Right. So
they were just part of his brain that just shut down and he couldn't wake up.
So let me ask you this, because I had heard this piece, which I thought explained why the cops looked at this as a investigation versus just as a SIDS. And that was when CPR was being performed. There might have been an injury to like the chest or something like that with compressions, or is that just the talk of the town? Because there was a lot that was spread that nobody knew what that's the frustrating part.
There was a lot. There's a lot of what the media says,
right,
that I call bullshit nowadays.
Yeah.
Just for the fact of, just for the fact of, like, okay, so I've been through a tragedy. I've seen house fires. Like, house fires televised. Like, that's somebody's tragedy. Why are you
right.
Why are you broadcasting that?
Right.
Somebody's tragedy. Somebody's losing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. And when he passed away, they confiscated all my electronics, which is fine. Like, you can look through them. You're not going to find anything. But they confiscated them just to make sure, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a terrible person.
Right.
And they told me, after they gave me back my cell phone and all my electronics, and the detective, his name was Paul Olson, and the other detective's name was Paul. I can't remember the other one's last name, but they were great. They were
good.
They were great cops, actually, in Sheboygan.
Good.
Great detectives.
Good.
One of the best ones I've seen so far, to be honest. I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot of shitty ones.
Sure.
But they gave it back to me, and they told my family, and they told me, I sat in a dark room for over a month. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't do anything. I just slept. Or I just sat in a dark room. I refused to leave. I didn't see the outside. I didn't see daylight. I didn't see the animals. I didn't see my oldest son. I didn't see anything. I was just gone. I was so sad. But they told my family, and they told me, don't go on social media. Don't go on the internet. And out of curiosity, after his funeral, which was later, I did. And some of my friends shared, oh, look at blah, 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 they're probably junkies and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Not everybody's a junkie.
Right.
Not everybody has a tragedy that they're doing drugs. Because you know what? That is not what happened whatsoever.
Right.
And not at all. And, like, some of the shit I seen, because I went on the scanner report, too, and some of the shit people say about people, I can't even fathom, because it's like, you don't even know. And now that I look at, like, the news, I look at the scanner, I look at videos.
Right.
And then, like, these poor people are going through a tragedy, and it's being broadcasted to everybody.
Right.
Not only is it bad enough that you lost everything,
but then you're turning.
But it's on video.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
Yeah.
So, like, somebody's house is burning down with a child or a dog in it, and people are just commenting on it, not worried about the fact that they're going through a tragedy or they lost everything or they lost an animal or a child or any sense of being.
Mm-hmm.
But they're worried about, oh, they're this or they're that, or they make like
There's
categories.
A lot of sick individuals out there. Yeah.
It's really interesting to me because it drives me insane now. Because I can't deal with the news. I can't deal with the newspaper. because everyone's full of shit because nobody knows what they're talking about.
Right.
Unless they're in the actual tragedy or they're in the actual moment or anything. And then it's televised. So if you're not traumatized enough by, the court system or the media or your life itself, you have it fucking everywhere and nobody knows what the fuck they're actually talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it drives me insane. There's no intelligence, there's no logical sense anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's really not.
Let me ask you a question. What could they do police department wise or detective wise or anything that they could change to make people to me this was grossly uncalled for, and that was my opinion just from the facts that I knew, and I watched what it did to you and it was horrible.
I have documents.
Is there any
in my safe?
Yeah, but
I promise.
Regarding what you went through, is there anything that you can put your finger on that says this needs to change, that we can bring awareness to? If not, is it just it is what it is? And in which case, I myself, it's hard to accept and move on. And it sounds like that's what you want to do instead of trying to bring a lawsuit and all of that. I commend you for that. I personally, I believe that there should be justice and there should be certain things for victims instead of just being a victim and then they get to gawk at us and say, "Oh, poor you," The
legally
reason,
wise.
What's that?
Legally wise.
Yeah, like
are you talking about legally wise?
Legally wise.
Legally wise.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't think they should have taken your kid.
When it comes,
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, 3 topics: cops, lawyers, social workers. Okay, cops. They are not all the same, and I know they're not. There's so many of them, but they're the arrogance. They think they're the power, and they think they're more intelligent than some people. And I'm sorry, but I know people that are on so many drugs that are more intelligent than some of these guys.
Right.
Holy crap. And it's not that I'm proud of that, and they're still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
But, like some of these cops are not even that fucking smart. And they, like the one cop that stopped me out of the bathroom when my son died, he was a young cop. He was probably about 25 years old, I would like to say. And I could identify him if I see him. I can't remember his name.
Oh, it's okay.
But he was just too full of power. He was too young. He thought he knew everything.
Sure.
And like cops are still human beings. They're not superheroes. They don't know everything. They can't tell everything.
Right.
And I get that. Like I do. I get that. But I also don't understand what makes them be able to, if they're human too and they fuck up too and they're not intelligent, they're not superpower intelligent.
Right.
They're intelligent as the rest of us. Why they have the higher power that can predict what we can or cannot do or what is right and what is wrong, even though they do things that are wrong. Because there are been cops in this county that have crashed their two squad cars drunk. Okay, so you're not better than the rest of them.
Did they get kicked off the force, or are they still on the force?
Nope.
So they're still on the force?
Yep.
Wow. So they were drunk crash their squad cars into one another. And
It's an article. Look it up.
wow. What year did this happen?
I would like to say 15 or 16.
Crazy.
Maybe 14. Maybe 14. But it was a thing. It was a thing. And then the lawyers, like your situation, the lawyers I had was good. But like the lawyers my parents had for my brother was not good. Lawyers are really only out for themselves sometimes. It depends. Lawyers are always smart.
Mm-hmm.
It depends if they're selfish or not. And then, what was the last one that I was going to talk about?
Social workers, attorneys, and...
Social workers. Okay. There are some really mean people that are social workers.
Adjust your mic because something happened. Your audio went back.
Still hear me?
Yeah, it's just maybe your thumb's over the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go. Much better.
Okay. And then you got social workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So social workers, and especially the old ones, they've dealt with walking the homes with lice and dog shit everywhere and like fucking needles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you're a social worker and you can cope inside with not everybody is bad,
mm-hmm.
should probably like retire your fucking self.
Right.
Because not everybody is bad. I understand that you're in a like sort of force that has to protect the children, but if you're not protecting the children, okay, here's a story. So my story, you heard my story where they tried to take away Damien for why? Because my son passed away, and their reason was because he was in the house, in his room, sleeping peacefully when he died from S.I.D.S.
Yeah,
and then
really
they chose to stay around for grieving purposes. So they chose to fuck up my life even more for if I was okay. No, I'm not okay. Leave me the fuck alone, right?
Right.
No. So my cousin, she was 26 years old, worked at Georgia Pacific. She was... My cousin was gorgeous. I don't know if you remember Jennifer, but she was gorgeous. She didn't drink. She didn't smoke. She didn't do anything. She worked 7 days a week.
Did she pass? Because you talk about her in past tense.
Because she passed away.
What happened?
Do you remember her?
I don't think so.
Here's another fun fact. Dr. Brian Schmidt of Sheboygan County at Memorial Hospital in Aurora Clinic. He was our family doctor. Everybody switched from him except for my cousin Jennifer. She was 26 years old. She was gorgeous. She was healthy. She didn't drink. She didn't smoke. And she had 2 little ones. Anna and Berto, right? And she complained about a headache for 2 years straight. And she was an angry person. Like, who doesn't have anger in this world anymore?
Sure.
Right? But she was stressed. She was stressed all the time. And aren't we all? And she kept going to the doctor, like, I have a headache, and go say, take some Tylenol. It's a tension headache. Go take some Tylenol. Go home. Go nap. They ignored it. And one day I was at work. It was a Tuesday. I was just getting off of work, and I got a phone call. You need to come up to the emergency room right now. So I went up there and she seemed fine. Her head just hurt. I stayed with her. My mother took the kids. She actually got some scans because finally my aunt was like, do an MRI, do something, do a fucking scan, figure out what the hell is wrong with her.
Right.
She had a tumor in the quarter side of her brain, right here in the front of her lobe, what I was talking about. She died a day and a half later.
I do remember her. I had to look her up. She was...
The redhead?
Yeah.
The skinny redhead?
Yeah.
In my wedding? Yeah. Yeah. No. She didn't have a headache because she was mad. She had a headache because she had a fucking tumor. And they refused to do anything about it. They didn't scan her or nothing around here. And she died up in Milwaukee.
And whatever happened to the doctor? Was the family able to pursue medical malpractice?
No, because my aunt was just as hurt. My aunt lost her kid too.
Right.
She was just in shock and she was just as hurt as I was.
Right.
And actually, when she went up there, or went down there to Milwaukee, like I supplied, this is why I hoard money and stuff, because emergencies now.
Right.
Because you need food, you need someplace to stay, you need comfort.
Right.
In some way, and now I kind of hoard money for emergencies. It's kind of sad.
Smart. It's really smart. Yeah.
Received so much, it's ridiculous. She was the 11th funeral out of 8 months. Squeakers was the first. She was the last one, and her kids, my parents and my brother and my son Damien was down here with her kids when I was in Milwaukee with her. And she had so many underlying problems. There was something underneath her heart. There was a tumor inside her brain. She was a way better person than I've ever seen. She was a good mom and everything, and she worked so hard.
Yeah.
And she went to the doctor so many times for this, and they just gave her aspirin